Well, then let's talk power. Let's talk round four and Ireland France. They went 7-1 yesterday in Rome, France. That felt in part to smash Italy, but also just a little. Have a think about that for the next fortnight, Easterby. We might do that. We may do that again. We may not. They will certainly go 6-2. So Ireland's tradition with 6-2 is pretty limited in that even on the South African tour last summer, they never went 6-2 on the bench against that South African side. And actually, I thought had they, but they didn't go 6-2 against South Africa at the World Cup. Where they went 6-2 was, interestingly, of course, at Twickenham last year, and also against France last year. They went 6-2 on the bench. They're the two big times Ireland have gone 6-2 at the bench. Last year, Six Nations. Now, obviously, France last year in Marseille, France were heartbroken for the World Cup. Ireland just destroyed them. It's hard to know what impact it had. At Twickenham, that was a day where Calvin Nash had the early collision. Kieran Frawley came on for him, and then Kieran Frawley failed his HIA. And Ireland ended up with Murray at 9 and Gibson Park spending 30 minutes on the wing. So you'd have to say you don't love the sound of that. So this comes with risk. But equally, if the game is so centred on power, and you can imagine 6, maybe 7 beefy French boys coming off the bench on 48, 50 minutes, then Ireland are going to have to match that power. So give us the considerations you think that the Irish management team will be having.
Yeah, I think you don't do a 5-3-6-2 or 7-1 split for the sake of it. You do it because of the personnel that are available. And that's where obviously you're going to have a sub-tight head prop. I get that. But is Furlong going to be back available? Is Doris going to be back fit? Is Kelleher going to be back fit? That has a knock-on effect, because if you take out, for example, Furlong, Kelleher, you're going, right, maybe we're not as powerful as we are with those guys. Maybe then we need to go to a 6-2 split. Those guys come back and you feel like you've got enough power in your starting pack and coming off the bench, then you've the luxury of going to a 5-3 and having the likes of Osborne, for example, in the 23 shirt. And that's where, as well, like when you're talking about power off the bench, it's not just it comes from the pack, and that's why Ireland like having a sub centre on the bench. And maybe, we've seen McCluskey do it multiple times. The other side, as we touched on in the last kind of conversation, was how Ireland conserve energy. So they mightn't feel that they need to go 6-2 split because they're conserving energy of the team. They're going, of the pack that's out there, we think 4 or 5 of them can go 80 minutes or go 60 minutes, versus playing a really tiring game and being worried that, look, the legs could be gone here. And once that happens in the pack, it can get pretty ugly for you. I'm unsure what they'll do. It'd be very interesting. I think we'll probably go 6-2 split. Is my inkling. It'll be interesting to see who names their team first. There was obviously England came out and named their team really early. It could be to the last minute. And maybe we'll see a bit of silly buggers around changing the team late. Wouldn't surprise me.
If Ireland went 5-3 and France went 7-1, and Ireland found out 10 minutes before they were about to name their team that France had gone 7-1, do you think they'd change?
There could be a conversation, yeah.
Because it's interesting.
You don't want to be too reactionary.
I hear you.
Yeah. And you also bear in mind, these conversations with players have typically happened on a Monday or a Tuesday to then say,
sure,
we've actually changed our mind here. There would have to be some sort of asterisk to it. Maybe they're carrying an injury, or they didn't train particularly well. would be another one that you could hit them with.
You've been terrible in training. What? Because the direction of travel here is just startlingly obvious from the weekend. Ireland are the outlier now in that Wales, England, Scotland, Italy 6-2, France 7-1. Ireland the only team in the Six Nations that went 5-3.
Yeah, and look, Matt discussed it from a safety point of view, and I'd agree with them on that. From how I'm looking at it with young backs coming through, it's very difficult to see where they get opportunities, because typically it's going to come, the last 20 minutes of a game when either you're ahead or you've been given license to go on and chase the game. They're the opportunities you'll get in your early 20s. But if teams are consistently going with a 6-2 split, and most teams are going to have number 9 cover, that leaves 10 out to 15. What opportunities are those younger guys getting? And it's an issue that we're seeing with the likes of Frawley and Osborne, trying to forge their way into the 23 and getting enough minutes, because you can very easily go 4, 6, 8 games and have very bit part opportunities to prove yourself and forge your way back into the starting 15.
It's possibly gone too far down the tangent now. We'll come back to it on a quieter week, but I suppose just the exceptional physicality of the modern player means that we're sort of seeing hybrids now, like the Quagga Smith, who can go back and do a job at centre, or a Bottia, who is as adept as a back row or a centre. Yeah. They will become that middle ground. Is it a 5-3? Is it a 6-2? Well, we've this guy in the middle, so it's whatever we want it to be. And I think that shape and that physicality will dictate that it's increasingly 6-2, somebody who can fill in the back line in case of a crisis. That strikes me as the smart coaching move.
Yeah, could we go with squad sizes of 24 where you have to have 3 backs and you're allowed to have 6 forwards? Would that solve it?
No,
because I don't know the answer.
Then they'd go, well, we've got 7. We've a 7.
No, you'd have to pick.
Yeah,
but then you're
going
going
Quagga Smith is a back.
Yeah, but then you're going into designated players, which they do for the front row. So you have to say before a game, for example, Tyg Furlong, he can cover tight head and he can also cover loose head, and he's done it enough times in training that we can stand over it. And he can actually cover hooker as well. That's covered and that is important, because that's where you fall into having to take a player off, or can he cover? Because if you can't, you could end up having to go down to 14 players. Yeah, look, you're opening up a can of worms there. I don't know the answer, but it is a frustrating one.